It occurred to me that the medical history as traditionally taken by the doctor was at once time-consuming and difficult for the doctor to take the very detailed medical history that we were all taught to do in medical school, and that busy clinicians were often found themselves unable to ask all of the questions that would be helpful in the as they are caring for the patient. And it occurred to me that the power of the computer might be used to help the doctor with the medical interview. And colleagues of mine and I at the University of Wisconsin and had the idea that we could actually program a computer to interact directly with the patient, to engage in meaningful dialogue, and to explore medical problems in detail, and to do so in a personalized, dignified, and considerate manner. Patients have found their experience with the computer interview to be interesting, enjoyable, and even empowering. And the early concerns about the use of the computer to interview patients directly about their medical histories, concerns that this would be a dehumanizing process and interfere with the art of medicine have not been founded. Most patients in our experience have found their interaction with the computer to be a very positive experience for them. So our hope was that the interactive computer programmed to take a medical history directly from the patient would be an interesting, very positive experience for the patient, would save the doctor's time and free the doctor up to spend more of the free association time with the patient, what I would call the existentially important aspects of the doctor-patient relationship. Actually improve the art of medicine by at the same time providing a detailed medical history in computer processable form available for the doctor and the doctor's colleagues to use over time, as well as stored to be pooled with the medical history data of other patients, de-identified for the protection of confidentiality, but such that we could do research on the medical history and find out those questions that are particularly helpful and those questions that aren't, and actually improve the overall quality of the medical history. One thing we found is that patients are often more comfortable when communicating information of a very personal or private or potentially embarrassing matter to the computer than they are to their doctor, even when they have a good relationship with their doctor and they want their doctor to know the answers to very personal questions. It's just sometimes easier for them to communicate this to the computer. And this is a finding, I think, that has to be used, that we have to be very careful with this to protect the patient's confidentiality, but I would say that this is really one of the a priori advantages of the computer as an interviewer. We also, when you think about it, yes/no type questions that we use when we take a medical history are based on three assumptions. One is that the patient knows the answer to a question, and it has occurred to me that there should be a provision for the patient to communicate when he or she doesn't know the answer, and we've put that option into our medical history questions. For example, it could be a very good question about a family history problem that the patient doesn't just understands the question but doesn't know the answer. A second assumption that is often made is that the patient understands the question, and there are two facets to this. The first is that it may be a very good question, but one that's beyond the level of knowledge of the patient and should be followed up by a series of explanatory statements and perhaps some additional qualifying questions such that the patient then does understand the question and can answer it. The other possibility is that the question may be a bad question, and we can focus on questions that are consistently not being understood and revise them or drop them from the interview. And a third assumption that is typically made is that the patient is willing to answer the question. And it has occurred to me over the years that there should be the equivalent of a Fifth Amendment option in our medical histories, that it's not necessarily the patient's responsibility to answer questions that the patient finds offensive. It should be our responsibility to explain the reason why we're asking the question, and but it should be ultimately up to the patient as to whether he or she wants to respond to that question. And and just overall, this is a more convenient way for patients to provide their medical histories, and then when they see their doctor, the results of their medical history are available at the time of the clinical transaction. Well, I would see it's my dream that there will be patient-computer dialogue, the provision for patient-computer dialogue throughout our country, and that patients will be able to turn to the computer to provide their medical histories, but also to ask questions about their medical problems and to get advice and suggestions for the management of those problems that could be done well by the patient, him or herself. It's long been my premise that the largest, least well-utilized healthcare resource is the patient or the prospective patient.